This is Dontae Williams, and you watching
Dontae's Boxing Nation.
This is Showtime Sean Portland.
Filipino Flash, Jesse Burns.
This is Al Bernstein. You're watching Dontae's Boxing Nation.
Hi, I'm Sugar Ray.
Chick Shape.
Search over last name more.
Dontae's Boxing Nation. Boom, 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 boom.
Yo, this is Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder.
My name is Gennady Golovkin.
And you're watching
Dontaesboxingnation. Nation.
Hi, this is Julian Jackson, and this is Dontaesboxingnation.
This is Julia Jackson, and you're watching Dontaesboxingnation. All right. Me around,
This is kind of my war room, my Bill Belichick room, if you will, and decorated with we've got a potpourri of all kinds of stuff. You mentioned we saw the picture of Ali. There's one. Which was, I think, taken that same night. That was before the first Frazier fight. And we got that $20 bill that he gave me back in the day. As broke as I've been at different times, I've never spent that.
Nice.
And then you got some of everything. You got some pictures of me fighting back in the early 80s in Miami. And
a lot of people didn't know you were a professional fighter, huh?
Yeah. Well,
At what division?
I was a bantamweight, 118 pounds. And in fact, there is actually one of the Alexis Arguello helped me get ready for that fight in terms of showing me how to throw the right hand, and I got lucky enough to show him how old I am because it's in black and white, but there's the coup de grace. I knocked him out with that right hand you see landing right there.
Nice. I say.
So we have some of everything. We have, some pictures with me, with Lennox Lewis, with all the belts, and Floyd in the end ring that we mentioned, and Manny, and there's Alexis Arguello right there sandwiched in between, and some more of Ali, and
So man, your whole life has been surrounded by boxing, huh?
boxing and football. I was lucky enough to play high school at Carroll City, and a couple of years I played at the University of Minnesota Tech. There's a little tiny 5'6" wide receiver scoring a touchdown in college. Yeah, that's so I played a little.
It wasn't just boxing then.
No, it's all around sports, but boxing is obviously my love. So.
Nice. There it is. Smitty's Sports Talk.
Yeah, that's when I started in radio back in the day. That's where, my career started in Fort Myers, Florida as a radio guy, and graduated to hosting my own show. So this is where it's all done.
Absolutely.
And for the ladies there's a Smitty actually.
Your Men's Fitness magazine cover
that's
shot.
My GQ, I guess, back in the day. And sometimes the best thing to do is just fake it till you make it,
That's right.
So.
How did you get into radio?
I always wanted to do, my goal. It's funny because when I first met Ali and he asked me, he said, "Little white boy, what do you want to be if you ever grow up?" And I said, "I want to be like Johnny Carson and have a television show." And he said, you will have your own show because you're just like me, you never shut up." And I would end up having my own television show, thank God. But, I grew up listening to radio in Miami and Larry King and Colonel Bob Sheridan and others, and I always wanted my own show because I felt like in radio that when you're on there and you're answering questions and people are on and you can do long, elongated interviews, that's when your skill really shows, and it's much more fun. So I started out with a little radio show, and it would graduate into where I had people on like Hammer and Hank Aaron and Jim Brown and some of the greatest icons and John Unitas and all the sports. And so I did radio locally, nationally, and then moved here to Vegas from Fort Myers in '97 and started doing a ton of boxing, and started doing a lot of fights as a commentator, doing mainly color, sometimes blow by blow. And then I give my ex-wife their credit because Kim said to me, "Well, why don't you do your own show?" And I said, "Oh yeah, maybe I'll try that." I guess I should have listened to you, Kim. And I ended up doing that and putting it together, and we're still on the air all these years later. This is one of my favorites, picture, because that's my daughter kissing Muhammad Ali.
Nice.
When she's now in New York as an actress herself, and so yeah, that's kind of special that my kids would get to meet him because he had such an influence on my life. But whenever I talk Ali, I can't forget to mention Joe Frazier. It's so cool that my kids, and there's Megan kissing Ali, would end up because Ali meant so much to me and so many others. But Joe Frazier as again, life would have it, he came to town in 2011, and I was getting ready to go to the Hall of Fame, and I put together at the last second, Joe agreed to sit down with me at the South Point, I think it was, and we did this interview. We did a whole TV show, and I had already interviewed Joe on radio, but never on television, never part of In This Corner, and that would turn out to be the final television interview he did, because not so many months later, the cancer took over and he died, a few months later. So that was special that I could be with Ali and kind of end up with Frazier. Those two who, when you talk about rivalries, it begins and ends with Ali Frazier.
Nice. Now, let me also ask you about the other fight that we had. Man, this feels like boxing is starting to look like the NFL almost. All these fights we had this week. We had another great fight this week, matter of fact, tonight, which was Lamont Peterson versus Felix Diaz. How did you see that fight?
Yeah, and before we get to that, I was watching the Cologne fight,
That's right.
earlier, and I noticed when he had gotten hit a couple times, I had said to a couple of people, and I tweeted and I Facebooked that there was something, I didn't like his reaction. He was touching himself, and it reminded me, unfortunately, I've been at fights, 3 or 4, maybe 5 fights where people have died, and also where guys have had bleeds, and he had those characteristics going on. The demeanor, his physical demeanor during the fight reminded me of a guy that, and I said, I hope I'm wrong, but man, I hope he doesn't have a bleed, and it would turn out that he does. So prayers for Cologne that he recovers. But yeah, I had Peterson winning that fight. Lamont's a good fighter. He's not a great fighter, but he's a good fighter. And with all the boxing, it's amazing that we had a couple of fights going on today on NBC, setting the table for this pay-per-view we would see tonight with 2 very special fighters in Gennady and Chocolatito.
Do you think, you just brought up the fact that they had a card on on regular TV, free TV, I should say. Do you think that'll take away from the pay-per-view numbers, the David Lemieux Golovkin fight?
I don't even give a damn. I mean, I just think if it helps the fighters at the end of the day, if it brings more fans to the sport, and it helps kids get a payday, because there aren't many guys that can do what Floyd Mayweather is doing, jet setting around now and going to Cuba and hanging out in Smitty's hometown, Miami, and God bless him. But most of them aren't. So if there can be through Ppv'S and all that, more fighters getting more fights and making more money, and then great, that's all good.
Okay. Now just before I close out, let's get some of your predictions to close out the year. Let's start with Cotto versus Canelo.
You can't get that prediction because I haven't made it yet on even my own show. So
then you really got to give it to me now.
Yeah, you know what? I like your show and I like your style, but your pay is so cheap I won't be back for a while.
Oh man, there you go.
Where do you think I got that from? I'll give that one to you when it gets. I haven't even made it. I'm picking Canelo to win the fight.
You're picking Canelo to win the fight. Okay.
I haven't broke it down to because with me, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Honestly,
you told me that a couple times.
I scare myself. I'm so accurate. So, but Canelo is also responsible. I'm responsible for one of the main blemishes I've had because I think I picked him to beat a guy named Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd's never let me forget about that. Although the reason that fight did all of the damn numbers is because I went on, the countdown show, giving Canelo a shot at winning. But that'll be a great fight. I really look forward to that fight here in Vegas and in November.
And last but not least, let me ask you about the Bronze Bomber. We haven't had a dominant American heavyweight in quite some time. How far do you see Deontay going in the heavyweight division?
He has some. Well, let's accentuate the positive. He's big, and he's long, and he has good skills, and I like the kid. He's a good guy, and he has some liabilities defensively, and I don't know how tough his beard is, but he's been able to do pretty damn good. And I think overall, he's really good for the sport. He's good for this country. I mean, I grew up in an era where we had, Ali and Frazier and just so many, greats before that. I mean, all the way back to Joe Louis and Jack Dempsey and, and all the great American heavyweights. So it's really good for the sport with the guys named Klitschko dominating things to have him. And again, do I think he's a Larry Holmes or no? But he's good.
Yeah. So you don't see him beating Vladimir Klitschko?
That's a pick'em fight right now. I mean, you'd favor Vladimir, but because Vlad's getting older, I don't even know if he'll get past Fury. I mean, he's a guy that's been knocked out 3 times, I think, in his career. He's older and he's at the end. And when you're chinny and at the end, that's a recipe for something to happen. He can't go on forever. So I would make him the favorite to beat Wilder. However, it wouldn't surprise me if Wilder landed the long right hand and knocked him out. It could go either way.
Okay.
But again, we're not to that fight yet, so if I make that prediction, it's going to be on my show first.
There you go. Well, see, now I'm not going to ask you about Keith Thurman and Sean Porter since you just said that.
Is that fight signed?
It's not signed yet, but Sean Porter, he just recently said that they're looking at December.
I think the best welterweight in the world right now, if he can keep his head together, would be Kell Brook. I think his combination of power, he's not really the fastest guy, but he's so damn strong, and he already beat Porter. And I think, in terms of technique and skill, he would give Thurman fits. That would be the fight I'd want to see. Would be Thurman and Kell Brook. So that's there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out there at $147 and $154 and $160 with a guy we saw tonight named Triple G.
Now, if Triple G doesn't get the winner of Cotto Canelo, which that's the fight a lot of people want. A lot of people want to see Golovkin against Ward. If he doesn't get the winner of Cotto Canelo next, who should he fight?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, he is without question, the best 160-pound fighter in the world. Whoever else is below, any guys, coming up. I think we have a couple of middleweight championship. Who's Quillen fighting?
Danny Jacobs.
He's fighting Danny, and Danny's,
I love
fight. Danny's a good kid, but they would not be able to, in my opinion, handle Triple G. He would knock out either one of those guys. So it's nice because I came up in an era when we had a guy named Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and this guy, Triple G, is a very, very good fighter, and as I said earlier, a future Hall of Fame fighter. So we're watching something very special here.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Smitty. Thanks for having me as a guest to watch the fight in your house. Anything else you want to say to the fans?
No, but I will tell you to just deposit that money. You said that, there's a fee to get in my house and watch pay-per-views.
Yeah, you
Great
told.
seeing you. Thanks for joining. It's fun.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks, man. Good stuff.
You can.